Tom, how's it going, my friend?
How you doing today, man?
I'm doing good. Thanks so much for joining me on Dads with Mikes. I'm really excited for today's topic. How's it going? What are you doing?
Good, man. I've been looking forward to this for a while now, so this is good. Yeah. Today's been a good day. Got up, did some reading. I got a couple things on the agenda after this, so productive day.
Okay, good. You're on paternity leave now, aren't you?
I am on paternity leave. Yeah, fortunate enough that I get about 10 weeks, so where I don't have to do my day to day job. So
Nice. How's the baby?
she's good. She's good. Yeah, she's a baby. So my wife is able to connect with her on a much deeper level than I am. Obviously, as a man, it's like a different thing. But I'm getting there. I'm getting there. She's starting to kind of have a personality, and that's kind of when I feel like the men really start to connect with their kids. So we'll see. It's getting better and better as the day goes on. So
So you're not doing much yet, are you?
yeah, it's just right, just dad duty, right? Changing diapers and holding baby, and yeah. My wife breastfeeds and co-sleeps and everything. And she fortunately saves me a lot of the nighttime work, which is nice. Very thankful to her for that. But yeah, it's been good. It's been trying to mostly it's been me trying to help make up for her inability to entirely fulfill domestic duties. Right, she's a stay-at-home wife, so a
Right.
stay-at-home mom. So just helping her kind of keep the house clean and make meals every now and then and stuff like that, so that she has time to kind of focus on the baby.
Got it. Because this is your third
Yep,
child,
yeah, I
right?
got,
Your
I
third
got three
daughter as
daughters.
well.
Yeah, yeah, third daughter. Yeah, a 13-year-old. Um, I have a 7-year-old, and then I have my newest daughter, who's now a month old. So
Wow, that's a big gap between each.
it is a big gap. The first gap was unintentional. We had a miscarriage, so there was a mishap, and then the second gap was it's just one of those things where you keep waiting for the right time, and eventually you realize that there's never a right time. It's just, if you're going to have another kid, just have another kid. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Uh, so we did. It's actually kind of a quick anecdote. I had I had scheduled to have the snip, right, and and we had a pregnancy scare, and before I was able to make it to the appointment, my wife came to me with the pregnancy test, and the results hadn't showed up yet, and so we're waiting in anticipation, and the results came back negative, and I looked at my wife and I said, so I'm kind of disappointed about this. I said, I think part of me was excited about having another kid,
You
and she
wanted
was
it.
like, she goes, yeah, me too. And I said, okay, I think this is a sign. We need to just cancel the appointment and go ahead and have another one if we're going to have it. So
Nice.
I'm glad we did.
Yeah, that's awesome, man. Congrats on the third. You're the ultimate girl dad, aren't you?
Yeah, right. Yeah, exactly. I told her, I said, I kind of want to try one more time for a son, but I'm fearful.
That's what I was gonna say. Yeah, do you want that?
Yeah, right. It's a trade-off, right? What's more valuable, the chance at a son or the risk of a fourth
Yeah,
daughter?
that's the thing though. You don't know.
No,
But
I
is
joke though. I really enjoy having daughters. It's nice.
it's special, isn't it? I have a boy and a girl, and my youngest is the girl. She's 4 years old, and just it's just so different. It's very special. The
Mhm,
father daughter relationship to me is just really amazing.
mhm.
And I just see the dynamic, and don't get me wrong, like my son and I get along great, and there's also a great dynamic there. But just there's just something about a daughter, she's your little princess, right?
I agree. Yeah, it's
And
it's a weird it's a weird dynamic. Yeah.
yeah, how is it weird for you though? What do you mean by weird?
So what I mean by that is that I've noticed that having so many daughters, I almost feel like like I'm hyper aware all the time, right? Because you feel, as a man, you feel this sense of protection over your wife, and then over your daughters you have this sense of protection. And it's just like it keeps amplifying every time I have another daughter. So now I'm
Yeah.
like I feel like I'm just like an ever watchful sheepdog or something. Just like, yeah, looking for potential threats.
Oh yeah.
Yeah.
The dude, I think about all the time with my daughter, and I think I'm already protective enough. I
Hmm.
can't just I can't imagine what I'm gonna be like when she's like into her
Yeah,
teens.
yeah. We go on
How
family
is it
walks.
with your eldest? Is that like did you notice a difference in a shift of mindset or anything like that when she hit the teens, like in terms of how you feel and how you take care of her?
Um, well, yeah. So I've noticed as she's gotten older that I'm much more capable of connecting with her on an intellectual level, which has been fantastic. We have amazing conversations. She's a brilliant kid. She reads all the time. We actually will read. We read about a book a month together, and then we'll break it up in sections, and we'll discuss the chunks as we read along. So, like we did To Kill a Mockingbird last month. This month, she picked the book. It's one of the Percy Jackson books that that she liked, and you got to give her one every now and then. So can't be all academic, so
Right, of course, of
so
course.
uh, so it's good. But yeah, it was an interesting transition. One thing I noticed about having the new child, now obviously she's 13, so she's kind of starting to experience the whole change of life thing. And I noticed when the newest baby came, that she became very maternal. She really like started to kind of fall into that role, which I thought was interesting. She's always like doting over the baby and wanting to hold the baby and care for the baby. And I thought that was kind of fascinating to see that just kind of naturally unfold. You know what I mean?
Yeah. Oh, that's awesome. Tom,
Mhm.
in anticipation of today's episode, I was looking through your profile. I did some research.
Okay.
And I have to say, I think that you posted something yesterday about a little bit about what I wanted to talk about anyway, but I just thought it was so timely. It was about retiring your wife.
Hmm.
Now, this is probably going to be a very divisive issue, and I think, oh, I mean,
I
I'm
got
sure
some
you've,
pushback.
yeah, yeah, for sure. I'm sure you've gotten many comments or feedback on that one. I personally was able to do that recently with my family. And to
Good
give
for
you a little
you.
bit of background, oh, thank you. It took a while, but I'm really proud that I was able to do it, and that we're in a financial situation where we can do that. Because look, I'm gonna come out right out of the gate and say like it's not possible for everyone financially. I
Right.
think, uh, but my wife, what makes it even more proud, a source of pride for me, is that she was a lawyer.
Oh wow.
So, and for almost 10 years. So she's 30, almost 34 now. And she had been practicing law up until now, but she hated it.
Mm.
So what helped? Well, what helped in the sense that what led to this decision of her quitting her job was also the fact that she was just unhappy with it. But at the same time, it was always like an objective of mine to make it so and to make enough money to provide for my family so that she wouldn't have to work if she didn't want to.
Hmm.
And that last little part of the sentence there, I think, is pretty important because the if she wants to or if she doesn't want to, I think it's also another factor to consider. If a wife if
Yeah.
it wants to work, who am I to say no? And look, and this is the part where a lot of people might have a different opinion on. But if my wife wanted to keep working, I would have been okay with it. Uh, so I don't know how you feel about that. Was it the same for you? Like, did your wife want to work, or was it always the idea for her to be a stay-at-home mother and wife?
So me and my wife, when we got married, we were very poor, and we didn't have careers. We had jobs, right? I'm sure you know what I mean by that.
Yeah.
So her job at the time was not extremely lucrative. Neither was mine for that matter. And she had expressed a desire to be a stay-at-home mom. She's always had kind of that a strong maternal instinct. So it was always the goal. Now it didn't happen until my second child was born, about 6 months after my second child was born, which would have been maybe 7 years into our marriage. So it took us a while. But honestly, I don't think it was a financial stability thing that prevented us from doing it. It was a mindset thing. And that was a difficult hurdle to overcome because we're told by society that that two-income households is the only way to make it work, right? That it's impossible to live on a single income these days. You hear people talk about it all the time, inflation and blah 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 blah. For us, it actually was the fact that when she quit working, we pretty much broke even. And the way that worked was we had a second car, we had second car insurance, we had gas, we had childcare, we had the costs associated with eating out when we were both too tired from working to make dinner. We had, right, there was all these costs associated with her working that we weren't aware of until I started kind of going through all the finances and doing a deep dive to try to actually make it work. And when she quit work, it was not really stressful for us. Now, obviously, in your situation, you know, your wife had a lucrative career. That's a challenging obstacle to overcome because it's always easy to spend more. It's not easy to spend less, right?
Yeah.
Dave Ramsey has an excellent quip that I say often. He says, you know, most Americans celebrate a $300 a month raise with a $400 a month car payment, and that could not be any truer, right? And that's the reason why a lot of people can't live on a single income, is because they positioned themselves in such a way that they can't afford it, right? Yeah. So it was a struggle, but we made it work. So to answer your original question, yeah, she always kind of had a drive. Now, my opinion on the fact on women that want to work, obviously I support full autonomy for every individual, right? I'm not like from, you know, the 1300s or something, not some backwoods mentality, right? When it comes to women, but I do think that women are more inclined, for multiple reasons, to function well and feel a sense of fulfillment in a more domestic role. They're good at it for a variety of reasons, and they enjoy it. And as men, it seems to be that we have more of a biological inclination and also receive more of a sense of fulfillment from being in a position, gathering resources to bring back and help sustain our family and even help our family flourish. We just tend to work better in those roles. Now, that's not true for everybody, but I do feel that it's true. So I would argue that families tend to function better when the mother and father can fulfill the roles that they're best suited to fill. So that's why we went for ultimately her being a stay-at-home mom, and it's been the best thing we've ever done for our kids and for our relationship. So it was a great decision.
That's awesome, and congratulations on achieving that. I don't think, you know, like I said just a few moments ago, I don't think everybody can do that. It depends on a variety of factors, but I mean, yeah, I agree 100% with what you said, and it's very relatable because, you know, we never thought that it would lead to this. My wife, look, like I said, she was a lawyer. She studied many years to get to that point, and the bar and everything, and she practiced it, and she thought this was going to be her life, that this was going to be her career, her purpose. But after practicing it for a few years, she noticed that something was missing or something was off, and she wasn't feeling fulfilled. And even more, she was unhappy. She just didn't like it, and she didn't feel like she was serving her true purpose. And ever since she quit her job last year, look, she's an entirely different person and for the better. It's just amazing how she's transformed, and she found herself in the day to day of taking care of the household, taking care of the kids, which isn't to say that she's not doing anything else. She's also working on a little side hustle, you know, but it's not something that she has to do for money. She's doing it because she likes to have something extra to do, as opposed to just doing house chores or just taking care of the kids. It keeps her feeling fulfilled as well, with having something different to do, you know. So that definitely helps. But now she has time. She's on a baking streak for like, it's been like a few weeks now, where she's making bread almost every single day, and she's gotten better at it. Oh, dude, I'm eating so much bread and gaining weight.
My wife goes through those phases. I'm like, honey, come on, I put on 10 pounds this past month. You gotta get it back. Yeah.
Yeah, the kids love it, she loves it, but my tummy doesn't love it. But oh man, it's so dude, it's much more, much better than the grocery bought
Yeah.
breads that you get, and it's not processed and all that. So in that sense, it's better, but in
Mhm.
carbs, you know what
Yeah.
they do. But yeah,
So
she's doing things like that, and it's just, and she tells me herself, I feel great.
doesn't that make you feel good, man?
That makes me feel amazing.
I
Go
think you
ahead.
hit the nail on the head with it there, the want to versus the have to. Because it's part of my belief that we talk nice guys versus kind guys. And I think that's the defining factor between the two is that nice guys do generous things because they have to. And kind guys do generous things because they get to, because they have the opportunity to. And I think that because they want to, right? And I think that's true for women when it comes to being placed in a position where they feel like they need to create an income. It's like when they're placed in that position because they have to, it doesn't feel good, right? They much prefer to be in that position because they want to. And like you said, she's got a little side hustle, she's loving it. And honestly, I think it's kind of the opposite for men. I mean, I think that we it's kind of a long-winded idea, but we're in a position as a provider just by our nature, right? We do that because we have to do it, and that's okay with us. We're just wired differently. You know what I mean? Work is a necessary part of our nature as men. It's just it's a lot different, man. It's much different.
Do you think all men should strive to achieve that status of being able to provide enough for their family to be the sole provider? Is that
A
something that
hundred
all
percent,
men should? Yeah.
I do.
Why?
Well, we talked about well, out of a sense of duty, right? Like I talked about, sense of duty, because of the fact that we're just inclined biologically, intellectually towards that aim much more than women are. I mean, we talked about it a little bit too, about the idea of a high value man, right? And kind of what that means definition wise. And it somehow has been twisted. Society seems to think it means, six pack, six figures, 6 foot, 6 inches, right? I mean, that's like the societal viewpoint of what a high value man is. But man, that's so convoluted that couldn't be more wrong. High value men are competent. They have a sense of masculine character, right? They're honorable. They have integrity. Uh, it's just I don't know. I don't know what went wrong. I don't know where we made this diversion away from what a true high value man looks like towards.
Feminism.
Yeah, well,
The
I would
rise of
agree. I
feminism.
think that's part of it, and that's another thing I was going to say too about the when it comes to women in the workplace is I'm by no means am I a conspiracy theorist, and I am by no means suggesting that there is an intentional malevolence in the way that the system is the way the system has evolved. But I do find it interesting to ask myself the question: who benefits the most from having men and women in the workplace as opposed to just men? Right, you're doubling the amount of workers, you're doubling the amount of tax revenue,
Yeah.
you're doubling the amount. It's just, yeah, if you really dig in and you think about it for a second, everyone benefits but the family, and
Yeah,
that's
and it puts an incredible amount of pressure on women, doesn't it? We're
oh,
expecting them
absolutely.
to take care of their
Yeah.
husbands and their kids and their
Yep.
house and have a full-time career as well.
Well,
No
and that's the
wonder we have
irony.
so much burnout.
That's the irony, right? Is that we're in these households where both the men and women are working, and what ends up happening is that the women still feel inclined, they still gravitate towards the more domestic duties, right? They still feel the need to clean the house and make them take care of the kids, right? And take care of their husband. And the men don't feel that same need. The men go out and they make the money and they work hard and they come back and they're like, okay, my job's done. you know, and it's funny, it just causes conflict because now the woman, not only is she working 40 hours a week, but she's feeling the need to do all this other stuff. And the whole time she's resenting her husband for not having the same drive. Right. And
Yeah,
it's just yeah, it's a slippery slope.
and it's unrealistic. I mean, they can't do it all, and I
Right.
think I really believe that it could lead to burnout. And
Uh-huh.
then the women probably feel like they failed themselves. They failed their husbands, they failed their children. And
Right.
what does that lead to? It makes no sense to me. So
Yeah. Yeah, you're right. That's interesting too, the idea of success and failure, right? So we can define success for ourselves, but in some ways, success is predefined, right, by our biological inclinations. So, like you said, they feel like they failed their children. Your
yeah,
wife could have been an amazing, she could have been the best lawyer in the world, but she doesn't really feel a sense of success from that because it's just not her primary drive. You know what I mean? And like you said yourself, she hated it, you know?
yeah, yeah. So definitely, there's no way she could have kept going. That's for
Mhm.
sure. Because she had done another job, maybe, but she found herself with this it's funny to say new role because she was already a mother and wife,
Right.
but in the sense that she became a full-time mother and wife. And it's just it's look, it increased her sense of purpose and fulfillment tenfold. There's no comparison. And it's just is yeah, there's I don't think there's any going back at this point.
Now, let me ask you a
Unless
question.
her side hustle. Yeah, go ahead.
How difficult, because this is a common objection that we get, is the financial objection. How
Yeah.
how 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 difficult was it, and what was your strategy that you utilized to be able to go from a lucrative two-income household to a single income household?
It was you know what? This is gonna sound weird or funny, but it was just looking at our financials,
Yep.
our budget, and realizing that it's gonna sound weird, and I'm gonna get a whole bunch of flack for this, but we're almost making too much money
Mm.
for the lifestyles that we lead. Now, this is the important
Ah,
part. My wife and I are both on the same page when it comes to expenses. My wife is not a big spender. She never was. Okay. Makeup only when she needed. Clothes only if she needed. Gadgets, all that stuff, jewelry, she doesn't care about. Same thing for me. I don't care about nice cars. I do make a good enough salary to afford a luxury car if I wanted to, but I don't want to. I don't
mhm.
see the need. That's just me. I'm not a car guy. So I can't speak for everybody, for all men. I'm speaking for myself here. I don't care about cars at all. Is it in good condition? Yes, good. Does it get me to where I need to go? Yes, perfect. Okay, there you go. I'll buy it. It's purely based on need. Where do I go anyway? I bring my kids to school or the grocery store or the grandparents. Okay, fine. We take 1 or 2 road trips a year. Do I need a Porsche for that?
Right.
No. I need a good functioning car. That's it. That's all. So that's one thing that we save a lot of money on. We have both of our cars, the cars that we have now, they're used cars and we've had them for a while and they're still in good condition. Uh, do they have problems here and there? Yeah, but not enough for me to say, let's get a new car.
Mhm.
I don't get that itch at all to want to get the latest car, the latest phone. Uh, so that type of thing where we don't spend a lot of money on things we don't need. Things that we do spend money on, obviously the essentials, the mortgage on the house, uh, food, clothing, activities for kids, uh, vacations, the occasional restaurant night for the family.
Right.
Those are the things I will gladly pay money for. But everything else, we sat down and we looked at it, and we were doing very well. And you could say we had a surplus. And I know it's going to sound weird because you could say, well, all that extra money you have, you could easily just invest in and make even more money. And yes, that's true. But at what cost?
Mhm.
My wife's happiness? Us neglecting our children? It doesn't make sense. So we realized that I was more than capable of making the mortgage payments on my own, which I am and have been doing so for almost a year now. And there's no struggle.
Right.
And we don't live a luxurious lifestyle. Like I said, we don't care about cars, gadgets, phones, clothing. Uh, Having fun with our kids is usually like going to the park or a walk in the forest or things like that. So, and this is something that we want to transfer to our kids as well. Like, and this is where the values come in. We don't value luxury. We value happiness
Hmm.
and fulfillment and doing the important things in life. And that's when you know that you should prioritize these things, and you realize, well, you know what? I guess we don't even need to be a 200,000 a year household with
Yeah.
the type of expenses that we have now. So that's what it was. It's not like I didn't even start to, okay, I want to retire my wife, so I'm going to start investing in this or investing in that or buy a property. There was none of that. It was really just sitting down, looking at our bank accounts, and realizing that we didn't need two income.
Yeah. Yeah, man. See, that's you hit on so many important points there. You're right. At what cost? Right? Like you said, it's like, yeah, we could invest our two income household and maybe make more money, but at the cost of my wife's happiness, at the cost of my kid's success, it's a no-brainer, you know. And so there are a variety of different kinds of value that can be assigned to something, right? So you can have aesthetic value, you can have utility value, market value, fulfillment value. Those are kind of the four big ones. So somewhere along the way, the lines have been blurred, and we see a Ferrari, which has very little utility value, very high aesthetic value, but it only has high aesthetic value because of its market value. And for
Right.
some reason along the way, we have assumed that because something has high market value, it has high fulfillment value, and that's not true. And it's funny because there's a simple aphorism that we've had around for I don't even really know its origins, but right, the best things in life are free. How many times did your grandpa tell you that? You know what I mean? It's like,
Oh yeah.
but somewhere along the way we forgot, right? And you absolutely nailed it. Same with me. I don't live a luxurious life. When we got married, like I said, we had jobs. We went to a single job household. Now we're a single career household. Since then, I've actually gotten a lucrative and fulfilling career, and our life hasn't changed much. You know, I mean, we've probably doubled our household income, and since then, and yeah, I mean, our life hasn't changed much because that stuff just doesn't bring us fulfillment. You know, it doesn't ultimately, it doesn't make us happy. Um, I'm the same as you. I'll splurge every now and then on like date nights with my wife. That's a big one. I'm more than happy to spend on a date night with my
Sure.
wife. But other than that, you just make conscious decisions. I mean, there's no reason to, like you said, drive a used car. It runs well, and I think that most people would find. Now, some people may be in your situation where they never lived outside their means, and as a matter of fact, you live well below your means, and so
Yeah,
you set yourself up to make this transition long before, probably without even realizing it.
that's
And
true.
some people might find that they're in that position, but I think most people will find that they're going to have to do some work if they want to retire their wife. But I think for most people it is possible, and it's probably impossible now with a few changes, if that makes sense.
How should they go about it? Because, like, I mean, you just said it. It's gonna take some planning, right? It's gonna take some organizing. It might take some, moving money around, or
Mhm.
or getting not a, I wouldn't say maybe a second job for the men, but that will be a bit too much, I think. Uh, so investing, buying properties, digital assets. But what would you, as a starting point,
Mhm.
okay? Somebody that wants to do this, a man that wants to retire his wife, what steps should they take in order to achieve that?
So the first step is going to be twofold, because and it's going to vary depending on the kind of person that you are. Now, most people, I think their finances are on autopilot. They couldn't tell you one way or the other, right? Right. What's going on with their finances, because I don't think they really look. So take a deep dive into your finances. And the second part of step one is to get educated on financial literacy, right? I talked about Dave Ramsey. I mean, that was kind of the motivation for a huge transition in our life, was going through his Financial Peace University. Ramit Sethi is a good resource. There's a lot of really good resources out there for financial literacy. Tony Robbins. I mean, there's so many guys out there that talk about finances, that there's readily available information and resources on places like YouTube. There's no reason that you can't, or your local library. There's no reason that you can't become financially literate. So become financially literate, take a deep dive into your finances, right? From there, it's just going to be a matter of doing the hard work. You might have to live with less. You might have to cancel your Netflix subscription. You might have, right? You might have to do without your daily latte. There's going to be some things that you have to do. Now, I posted a poll on my page the other day, and I asked the guys when they realize that their finances are tight, what's their first inclination? Is it to reduce expenses or increase income? And it was a 1-to-2 ratio for people leaning towards reducing their expenses. And that's great. Okay, reduce your expenses.
Yeah.
But I would argue that in some ways, increasing your income is easier. I mean, so if your wife is able to, if you are able to position it so your wife can go home, you have so much time to dive into a lucrative side hustle. You don't have to have a second job where you're gone another 40 hours a week or another 30 hours a week, right? You can still be home and even involve your children, right? Like I do a couple different things from home that make income. We have multiple streams of income since we've transitioned to her being stay at home.
Okay.
And my kids are involved in a lot of them. You know, they come out and they help me with stuff. It's not like I'm not home, but I'm still making money. You know what I mean?
Nice.
So that's another good strategy. So yeah, I think ultimately, like I said, step one, deep dive, increase financial literacy. And then step two is just do the work. When you find out where there's areas that you can save money, do it. It might mean at the cost of some comfort. That's fine. Start looking at alternatives, more frugal alternatives to things that you already have. Okay. So like you talked about taking your kids to the park, or maybe you've got a trampoline park subscription. You guys go to the trampoline park all the time and it costs you $50 a month or something like that. Well, find a different pastime that doesn't cost $50. There's plenty of things that kids find enjoyable that don't cost money. Your kids don't know how much you pay for something.
That's true.
You know what I mean? Exactly. Yeah. They don't know the difference in free or costly. Yeah. So that's probably the low hanging fruit. Now from there, depending on how bad your situation is, like you said, it might be impossible. Now, that doesn't mean that it's going to be impossible in the future if you're willing to make the changes, but
right.
Right. Mm-hmm.
Yeah, that makes a lot of sense, man. And it's, in terms of taking the first steps, it's just like you mentioned, it's getting informed, like believing that there is a way. Because, dude, isn't that the ultimate flex? Honestly, is to be able to retire a wife. Ever since that I did that, it is though, and it feels even better than like lifting or getting a personal PR on a lift. Yeah, it's such an amazing feeling, and isn't that what we want as men? I think that we're gonna get into this, but like in terms of what it means to be a man or high value man, like we said. That to me, that should be at the top of the list.
Oh yeah, yeah, I
and
agree
we've
with
got
you.
such a distorted definition of what a man is these days, like you mentioned a little bit. I feel like we've gone way off of what it is to be a man. And you read it a lot on X or any social media, and it's everywhere. Commercials. It's, it's such a distorted definition of what a man is. They focus on superficial things like having a six pack,
Mm-hmm.
being able to build a house by yourself. A lot of people on X say, "Oh, this is what it takes to be a man: change a tire, build a house by yourself, smoke cigars, drink whiskey." Look, those are masculine traits, sure. And if you could build your own house, that's amazing. But let's face it, most men cannot build a house by themselves.
Yeah.
Okay, so some of us might be more manual, or than others, but let's face it, we're just not living in the world like it was before that men can build their own house.
Yeah.
So I think like we're focusing, or a lot of people are focusing on the wrong things to be able to be a man. So if I ask you for a definition of what it means to be a man, what would you describe?
You can't define man these days. You can't define woman. You can't define man. You can't define any of that. That's 2024.
You got me there.
No. So that's a good question, man. I mean, so it's a tough definition to dig through because it's so expansive. it's so hard to say what a man is in a matter of a single sentence. Obviously, I would argue that there's the biological definition, but more than that, what it means to be a man, what it means to be masculine is a couple different things. And I use the term competency a lot. And every man is different. We live in a modern age. We don't all have to do everything, like you said. You know, as in the modern age, as a man, I don't have to know how to build a house. I don't have to know how to do, you know, everything. We're so divided as a society that we have other people that have decided to learn how to do this. They're good at it, and it makes more sense for me just to let them do it. But the point is as a man, you should absolutely have some degree of competency. We have too many men in our society that are good at nothing. They have zero competency, right? And that's scary. That's scary. So yeah, I mean, being a man means just going out and getting good at something, right? It means that's one aspect of it. That's not the whole. Going out and getting good at something. That's the competency aspect of it. The other aspect of it is character. So we need to be able as men to circumscribe our desires, meaning that we need to be able to contain our desires, our natural desires. So we have snap desires at certain times to fly off the handle and be angry about something. We have snap sexual desires when it comes to things like masturbation and porn. We have desires for consumption when it comes to things like fast food or snack food. We have desires when it comes to these exorbitant unnecessary expenses, like you mentioned, Ferraris and things like that. We have all these desires, and this idea was lost somewhere along the way. But as a man, it is our job to constantly be working towards becoming more and more disciplined, more and more effective, more and more competent, more and more worthwhile, right, over time. I use the term worthwhile a lot because the definition of the term worthwhile means literally being worth someone else's time. And that, as a man, if you're not worthwhile, if you're not worth someone else's time, you're not worth anything, right? So women, this is an interesting distinction between men and women. And this is one of the things I think that defines the two. Women have an innate level of value. Okay. Women at once they reach, childbearing age, once they reach adulthood, okay, they have an innate amount of value that is just built in. Men don't have that. Men have to create their own value, and that's fine, right? Men are expendable. They're disposable. We've seen it all throughout history, right? There's a reason millions of men have died in the mines. Millions of men have died in the wars. You know, men died at the defense of their country, at the defense of their family, countless times throughout history, and it just is the way it is, right? So as a man, you have to define your own value, and part of that is becoming competent, becoming disciplined, becoming an effective member of society, becoming worth other people's time, right?
Yeah.
And it's not an easy journey by any means, because it means you have to make sacrifices, and it means you have to forsake what you want now for what you may need in the future. And that is extremely difficult. I have sympathy for men that are in that position where they just feel like they can't get ahead in life. But I mean, at the end of the day, you don't have much of a choice, right? And no one's going to come save you. And you can blame everybody under the sun all day, every day, and it's not going to change anything. It's not going to change, because you can't change anybody else. You can only change yourself. So give yourself the power, give yourself the autonomy, throw away your blame list, climb out of the pit that you found yourself in, right? And become, a competent individual, a productive member of society.
Yeah, dude, I agree 100% with everything you said. And to me, being a man, I think it just means being the best version of yourself.
Mm-hmm.
Are you living life with a purpose? How are you with your wife? How are you with your kids? Are you a present husband and father? Are you taking care of them? That right there, you're already doing, like, to me, 75% of it.
Right.
The rest, you know, are you taking care of yourself physically and
Mhm.
mentally? You know, are you keep learning? Are you continuously learning? Are you reading books, listening to podcasts as opposed to watching Netflix?
Mhm.
You know, the latest season of whatever's in now. I don't even know.
Yeah.
You
Well,
know,
that's probably a good thing.
yeah, no, that's another flex of mine. I don't know what's in right now, music world or TV shows. I don't know. So, and I don't want to know. So I'm good with that. But yeah, so it's all those things and taking care of yourself physically, exercising to, you don't need to be jacked. Like I said, six
Right.
packs don't matter. But are
Yep.
you healthy enough and fit enough to be able to keep up with your kids?
Mhm.
That's one thing. It doesn't have to be like training 4 or 5 times a week. It could be 2 or 3 times a week.
Or keep up with your wife, right?
Or keep up with your wife.
Which is
Yeah,
is also very important.
that's true. Absolutely. Yeah. So that's what I have in mind when I think about how should I be a man. Are you treating your wife with respect? Are you taking care of your kids? That's what I think
Well,
of.
there's this interesting consequence that occurs as a result of what I had mentioned before about men having to define their value and women having innate value. But an interesting consequence of that is that because men are by default valueless, it then becomes very difficult for them to be motivated to do anything great for their own sake because they don't feel like they're worth it. And that's why I think it's so important that men find in their life a why, something that can drive them, something that they
There
can
you go.
become great for that thing's sake. And and I would argue that a wife is absolutely the best why power that you can find. Um, just that drive, it's that driving force that you need as a man. It's what I'm going to become a great man for the sake of my wife and family because I'll
Yeah.
never do it for myself.
Yeah, they drive our why, like you said. It's our wives and children, and everything that we do now is for them, right? For
Mhm.
ourselves as well, of course. But as a father and a husband, you're living for them now. The day that you get married and you have kids, from that day on, at least for me, that's how it was. I was like, oh, okay, they're my life now. Whereas before that, I was living selfishly.
Yeah.
It was all me, me, me. It's amazing
Well,
how getting married and having kids will bring about that change in you.
yeah, absolutely. Well, like you said yourself, you were living selfishly, but tell me if I'm wrong, you weren't going out and achieving great things, for the sake of yourself. When you say you were selfish, you were kind of placating yourself, I would bet, probably with senseless indulgences. You didn't do anything of value because you didn't feel like you were worth it. You had nothing
Zero.
driving you to do that. Yeah, yeah, it was the same way. And
I was doing none of that. Now
yep,
I work out. I didn't work
yep,
out before.
yep,
Now I volunteer. I didn't volunteer before. Now I have things like a podcast and the next account and posting about important things in life. I did not, dude. The conversations I had with my friends before I got married and had kids, nothing like what me and you are talking about now.
oh yeah.
Nothing.
Men are discouraged from having these types of conversations. It's devastating in some ways because so just kind of the career that I have found myself in now is the fire service. So I'm a firefighter and paramedic for a pretty large metropolitan U.S. city, and have a large department, and I interact with lots of different men and women on a daily basis. And man, sometimes the conversations that are had around the dinner table at the firehouse are just like they just are stunning to me. I just kind of sit in silence. I'm just like, what? Like this is the most devoid of value conversation ever. And sometimes they're even actively making situations worse. Like they'll sit around and they'll bitch about their partner or they'll complain about everything under the sun and it's just I don't get it, man, because it's not helpful. It's not help. It's like, look, you want your relationship to be better with your wife. I promise you that sitting here at this table and complaining about her to all of your friends who are only going to support you, you're putting yourself in an echo chamber, is not going to make your relationship any better. It's probably going to make it worse. Yeah.
Oh, absolutely.
We're discouraged from having intellectual conversations. It's it's unfortunate.
It's weird. Why do you think that is? Is it like big companies, they don't want you thinking about that stuff. They want you to consume, consume, consume. We live in a consuming society. To me,
Yeah.
that's one of the reasons. Why do you think that is?
I mean, again, just like I said before, so I'm by no means a conspiracy theorist. I'm not suggesting that there is an intentional malevolence, but it is good to ask yourself the question: who benefits the most, right? So, just like you said, who benefits the most from this de-intellectualization of our society? And you hit the nail on the head, right? The media companies benefit
Yeah.
from it. The products that are sold, all the luxury products you talked about, all the tech gadgets you talked about, social media platforms, and yeah, it seems like, again, everybody but us.
Yeah, you're right. I don't think Netflix is happy that I'm not watching.
Yeah, right, exactly. Yeah, exactly. And I mean, you maybe you go to Netflix to watch documentaries, and good on you, but that's such a small percentage of their viewer base.
Oh, I
You
cut
know,
it off completely. It's been a year, I think now.
Good for you,
We
man.
we we don't. There's no Hulu, no Crave, no. I don't know what else streaming app there is on now. Uh, we do YouTube,
Mhm.
but it's mostly for my wife and I both love podcasts.
Yeah,
Uh, so different variety of podcasting subjects. It feels like I'm either learning or listening to a conversation that I would like to have myself, and it gets me
right.
going. The juices are flowing in my mind and ideas are coming. Uh, Otherwise, the evenings usually look like me and my wife on the couch. The kids are asleep, talking to each other, having a dialogue, or like I said, watching podcasts that we both enjoy,
That's so awesome, man.
reading, taking a walk. That's it. There's no TV in our household. Is like it's not that there was a zero tolerance for it, but we made it so that, and even with our kids, they're barely watching it now. Uh, and it was never really introduced to them at an early age. Uh, so now it's like a weekend thing. We have this rule where they can watch 30 minutes of TV on the weekend. And even then, they've stopped asking us to watch TV. I can't even remember the last time they asked.
Yeah.
That's all far. So that
We
that's
watched.
that's another thing with in our household is the focus and attention that we have, that we put on family and being outside. And that starts with the man. That starts with the man in the house. You got to be able to
Yes.
lead, and along with your wife, of course, decide this together, but it should come from you. What kind of household do you want to have? What kind of values do you want to instill on your children? And that was something that I wanted, and my wife was on the same page as me, luckily. And same thing with junk food and sweets. Those are occasional treats that we have. So and with that, our kids are super creative. They play together. They're 6 and 4, and they can spend all day long playing outside in the backyard if they wanted to.
Yep.
They don't need toys. They find ways to keep busy, and they do it amazingly.
Yep. Yeah. Well, when you let them be bored, they find ways to be creative and have
There
fun.
you go.
My daughter does the same thing. Whenever I go outside, she wants to go outside with me. And it's like, well, what are you gonna do? I don't know. Figure it out when I get out there.
There you go.
Outside is fascinating. There's so many things to explore. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And yeah, she loves it. Just yeah, just keep an eye on her, listen for her scream.
There you go. That's
And
enough.
she does her own thing. It works out well.
For
It's
sure.
interesting though, because you kind of were talking about that, like being it was a different topic that you were talking about it when you were speaking just then about being uh, well, it's kind of what we've been talking about the whole time about kind of becoming a man. But I hear a lot of guys say, well, you want to be the kind of man that you want your daughter to marry, kind
Yeah.
of like show her what that man looks like. And that's true. But I think a good question to ask yourself is, what kind of man do I want my daughter to marry? Right.
Oh yeah.
You want to figure out how you should act. That's your answer. What kind of man do I want my daughter to marry? Do I want her to marry some dude that sits on the couch all day watching Netflix and eating Cheetos and, drinking beer? And no, so don't be that guy. It's not that hard, you know. Yeah, I get that people get addicted to that lifestyle. I understand there's an allure
I was
to.
there. I was there too, not too long ago.
I get it. This goes all the way back to what we just talked about a little while ago about men not getting better for their own sake. That's actually interesting. So, what is it that causes, assuming that's true, that men need an object, something to drive their improvement? Then what is it that causes some men, husbands that are married with children, what is it that causes them to still not experience that drive to become better? I'm kind of curious.
Complacency.
Yeah, it's a combination of things, isn't it? It's the addiction to consumerism. It's the drive from these big corporations. It's the deterrence for us to have intellectual conversations. It's the inclination to be sucked into a TV show as opposed to having a conversation with our wife on the couch at night. Yeah, there's just so many things that are pulling us in a million different directions as men.
Yeah.
It's challenging. I get it. I sympathize with men, but I still have kind of a no excuses policy. At the end of the day, it's like, guy, and Jordan Peterson gets a lot of flack for this. I feel like people make the claim that he's kind of placating people, or he's kind of like providing like useless advice, but he's not really. It's the best advice you could receive. I mean, if I'm stuck and my life is shit, what should I do? Well, you should at least not do nothing, right? That would be a
Yeah.
good start. You should do anything that you think is going to be a step in the right direction. But yeah, we're not encouraged to do that.
Tom, thank you so much for joining me on Dads with Mikes. Any last words of wisdom to men watching this right now? And maybe this got them going, and it provoked some thought in them to do something about maybe finding their purpose. What should they do to find their purpose?
So I've posted about this before, about finding purpose. And I think that your purpose is found in that moment when you're so caught up in what you're doing that you don't realize time is passing. People call that the zone, right? That is your purpose. It's that thing you're doing when you don't realize time is even passing. And it can't, but the sticking point there is it cannot be an act of consumption. It must
Right.
be an act of production, because those acts of consumption will suck us in by their own nature. They don't, it's a fool's game. So it's an act of production where you are so caught up in it that you don't realize time is passing. And that, I feel like, is your purpose. Now, that's a purpose. There are other ways to find your purpose, but I think that's a good start.
Sure.
And becoming a student. So Jim Rohn talks about this a lot. That's like, okay, well, you want to be wealthy, you should become a student of wealth. You want to be happy, you should become a student of happiness, right?
Yeah.
You should be a student. You should be a student of your wife. You should be constantly learning more about your wife. You should be constantly learning more about your kids. But that takes time and it takes intention.
Awesome. Last thing, Tom, where can people find you?
Yeah, so I'm on X at Earn Her Respect. In my bio, there's a link there to get on my email list. I'm going to be throwing out updates there for the coming future. I've got 2 projects that I'm working on right now. One is a book, which is set to be released in probably 6 to 7 months, is my
Okay.
timeline right now. It's called Chivalry and Courtship. It's essentially kind of a young man's guide to how to date and find the woman of your dreams, and then how to keep her once you have her. So it's kind of an antidote to red pill and pickup art ideology that's become so
Right.
rampant on Twitter. And then you can also find in there, I'm working on a men's group right now called The Fellowship, which is a men's accountability group where we have weekly calls to discuss goals, hold ourselves accountable. And then we also have where you're in a group of 5 men, and then the group as a whole has weekly discussions about issues facing traditional masculinity. So yeah, so check me out on X, and follow the link and sign up for the email list.
Awesome. Looking forward to all that, and we'll have to have you back on when you finish that book.
That sounds great, man. I look forward to it.